Hey, welcome to Behind the Scenes with Ashley. That's me. I just want to say I am so blessed to have you guys tuning in with me from wherever you are. It's been a while since I've been here. God's been like really tugging on my heart to give my testimony, and that's something really vulnerable. You know, you really have to really trust that other people need to hear what you need to say to get through whatever they may be going through, or understand that life's not all about all the good things. It's learning from the bad things. And I just want to take a second to pray. I've already prayed before I started, but I want to pray with you guys. So if you haven't invited God into your day, let's do that. Come on. Yeah, you. Let's do it. Father God, I just want to thank you for this time that I have to spread your word, share my story, and give you all the glory, Father God. Just want to thank you for whoever's on the other side of the screen or tuning in later for the replay. I want you to bless them, Father God. Wrap your arms around them and give them a big hug and let them know whatever they're going through, they're going to make it. I know it seems like sometimes in the thick of it, it's hard to move through it, the rut. But if they just surrender and give it to you, Father, you will always make a way. You are a way maker and a promise keeper. We love you, Father God, and we invite you in our day. And we just want to give you the praise and all the love and glory. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. All right, so let's continue. I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. All right. So, my name's Ashley. I'm born in the United States. I'm not going to give an exact location, but that's where I'm from. And it is, I'm going to say it's like 12. It's 12 something here in the afternoon. You can see light through the window. So I started my journey with God at a very young age. I never really understood being small. I never really understood God, and reading the Bible as a child, I was really afraid of God because I didn't understand that the Bible was broken down into two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. And I was just like, if God loved us so much, why is he like smiting people and cutting people's heads off, you know? And that was the old way. Just like they had kings and queens back in the day, and now they have presidents and governors and mayors, you know? Life evolves. And that was really hard for me. So it took a lot for me to dive deep into the Bible, but I always had a Bible. So my first Bible I got when it was like 2005-ish. And like my family wasn't religious, but like my granny and my Uncle Mark and Aunt Trina, they'd always go to church and they'd bring us with them. And it didn't matter what we did the night before, best believe we was going to church, you understand? Look, all right, well, of course, there's a lot of religious backgrounds, and I grew up Catholic, but I was reborn again into Pentecostal. And I never really understood the way of the Catholic. I followed as much as I could growing up to the best of my ability, but I always was drawn more to the non-denominational churches and like Pentecostal, and a lot of people give them a bad rap and like want to close the door, you know, on their face, and they're truly just trying to save you, you know. They love you. And in this world today, it's so hard to see that love through so much of the darkness that's around. And growing up, I never really felt like I fit in. I come from a home that was really divided at a very young age. My mom and dad split up when I was young, and I have 7 brothers and sisters. I don't see all of them, and it was bad. Not all bad, though. It was just really chaotic. I never really felt like I belonged anywhere, but always in my heart, I felt like I was different. Like, I always felt things at a more extreme level. I always knew, like, I've always had a sense of knowing. And at a very young age, I had asked God not to let me see any of my family that would pass away because it would scare me. And I kind of forgot about that. And it was like I was a free spirit. So I was just that kid that never seemed like anything was wrong with them, despite everything going on. And I grew up in a family of addicts. They all had their own little things, so a lot of feelings were suppressed, and like showing emotion was like kind of like a weakness in a way. So I ran with that growing up, and I would always pour myself into work or people pleasing, and I just wouldn't give that to God, because no one really at that age, unless you were brought up and taught, and had that guidance, then you don't know, and it's not your fault. Here we are. This is what we're learning for. And I always felt I was meant to write a book, and I was meant to talk and help people. I love people. I'm a people person. And I started working at a very young age. My dad was never really around. He always chose drugs or work or women over us. And I remember waiting at the door for him to come get us, and he just wouldn't show up. And I never realized how that affected my relationship with God, our Father. And until now, I never realized that the reason why it took so long for me to kind of like surrender to him was because I had a hard time trusting men. I had a hard time trusting anyone that was father figure like, because I felt like everyone always left me, or that I just wasn't doing enough, or I was just a burden or a bother, and that really ate me up inside. I didn't have many friends in the beginning. We moved a bunch. I couldn't really set a sound foundation. I was in between homes. One parent was hiding us, and the other parent was looking. Courts, everything were just involved. I got raped at a young age. I was touched inappropriately by my stepbrother, and he would tell us that if we wouldn't let him, he'd tell his mom would beat us. She'd whip us. And it was just rough. And, I would oftentimes think, God, why are you doing this to us? I remember taking the whippings for my sisters because I felt like I was the oldest and I needed to. And I didn't want them to get whipped. And then my mom remarried, and that was really hard on me. And I gave my stepfather a round for his money. But thank God for him, because he took us in and showed us how a dad's supposed to really love. But I didn't like it because he wasn't I didn't understand why my dad couldn't do that, for us. And the only time my dad really came around was when he needed something, and I would always give it to him because at least, I could see him. And that's sad, huh? And then
I would spend a lot of my summers and weekends with my granny and my papa, because I felt like that was my safe place. I would sleep so good there. They'd give me whatever I wanted. And in return, I learned their routines and I learned what they did, and I would wake up way before them and make sure all their stuff was done so they wouldn't have to do it. Because I felt like if they were taking care of me, that was my job to take care of them. And I felt that way about everything in life. And we don't realize in the rut of things that God puts us through things because there's a lesson through that. In return, the blessing is 10 times what you could even ever imagine. I was teased when I was younger because my real name is Ashley Nicole Duck, but my stepfather adopted us when I was 15, 16, and I didn't want to get adopted. Not that I didn't want to get adopted, I just didn't want his last name at first, because I felt like my real dad made me promise him that I would never change my name. And I made that promise to him, and then he didn't come through with the paperwork to sign to stop anything, so I ended up getting adopted, and I was so angry. My mom was mad because I didn't want to get adopted. My stepdad just was like, I don't understand, and it's like, as a kid, we have a hard time expressing those emotions and those feelings to our parents because we don't even know how we feel, right? Well, I tried to kill myself. I took an entire bottle of Tylenol or ibuprofen and then decided to go to work. I had to be 16 at the time. I was working at Subway and I didn't know what to do because no one knew I took the entire bottle. But I was just like, maybe if I'm not here, I won't be a burden to my family and they'll be able to save money and be happier. But God had other plans. So I called my granny to come and get me from Subway because I had to tell her what I did. She took me to the hospital. I remember just laying there next to her and she was just crying and she's like, why would you do this? And I was just like, because I hate my life. I hated my life. And I felt like God would just love me better in heaven. And I didn't really know anything much about religion. But I just felt like I'd be more at peace. And that I would have family up there that would love me the way I needed to be loved. Unconditionally. Sorry. So they pumped my stomach up and they shackled me down in my bed in the hospital. And they told me that I had to go to a mental hospital. And that was like 2 hours away from our house. And I mean, I was young. I didn't understand what that meant. And I had been diagnosed ADHD at the time and depressed, and generalized anxiety disorder. And when you hear that, you try to reason with it, you try to identify with it, you become that. Like, it comes sort of like it'd be an identity. And I never realized I had a choice. I thought all those things hindered me from where I needed to be. And so I went to this mental hospital, Crossroads, in Alexandria, Louisiana, and I was scared. I was so scared. I didn't know. We didn't have shoestrings on our shoes. We couldn't shave, nothing, had phones, nothing. And my parents never just gave me nothing. You understand? I had to work for what I wanted because, we weren't wealthy. And we had 4 kids living in the house, 2 boys, 2 girls. All my other brothers and sisters I wasn't allowed to see. And that was on my dad's side. So I just got to see my 2 brothers that my mom and stepdad had together, and we just all became really close. And they were angry at me that I did that. They told me I was selfish, that I had a good life. They didn't understand. And I just didn't know what to tell them, so I was just silent. And it's like, for the first time, they had me on all kind of medicine. I can't remember what. I was numb to feeling. And I like that. I like not being able to feel and not crying or being the sensitive one all the time. And I didn't realize until now, and that's where the addiction came from, of running away from my feelings, pouring myself into other things to mask my feelings and the way I felt about things, because I could never freely express how I felt. So anyway, I had to stay there for like a month. Got out, but I was in so much trouble. My mama and them didn't let us do nothing. You understand? Nothing. Went to school. We'd go to the movies sometimes in the skating rink, but as far as like parties, and no, we could not do any of that. And I'm glad. I wasn't glad at the time because I could never go with my friends where they were going, but I didn't understand why, I didn't understand why everybody else could do all those things and I couldn't. So I started becoming resentful. I started running. I started hiding things. People in school would give me phones and I would hide them, and my parents probably confiscated had to be like 10 phones, even cordless phones, dude. Like, I don't even know how. They were just all wanting to talk to me, and they just gave me the phones. My friends at the time, I would go to her house and her mom would take us to church, and her mom saw like how I was feeling and everything we were going through, and she wanted to take me in. And I wanted to move in so bad, y'all. I was just like, I can't be at my house. Like, they don't like me. No matter what I do, no matter how much chores I do, no matter how good of grades I get, it's not enough. And I don't feel like enough. And in return, that affected my schoolwork. That affected everything. And sorry, my fiance was trying to come in. I'm not restarting the whole video. I'm sorry. It's just an alarm just randomly go up like this. But it affected everything around me. And being so young and not really understanding who God was as a whole, because we'll truly never understand, because it's not for our understanding. I drifted away from God. I thought he abandoned me. People in my life were starting to die left and right. People were really close to me. And then I started getting old enough, and my parents had me change my name, so I eventually went from Ashley Nicole Duck to Ashley Nicole Tuchet. And people still tease me, I was chunky, my last name was Duck, didn't matter what sports I played or what group I hung out with, I still got teased. So I'd always laugh and I'd always joke around and hide the pain, because I didn't want to chance not being loved or not being liked. And that carried into my adult life. My parents emancipated me after that, because one day I decided they don't want to let me go. I'm gonna just take the truck and go. I'm going with my friends to IHOP.
and I was dating someone at the time, and also I couldn't see him like people do these days. I just could only see him at school or football, right? I was a cheerleader, he was a football player. And it got to the point, like after a few years, like of not being able to hang out outside of school, that I wasn't enough in a sense. And so I decided to take my dad's company truck, and I didn't even have a permit yet. I was 15, and I drove across town to meet my boyfriend to go to IHOP to eat, and with our friends. And the next day I had a soccer game, and I don't know. I remember driving back, and we lived down a mile gravel road, right? And I remember the song by 3 Doors Down playing. I'm 6 feet from the edge and I'm screaming, maybe 6 feet, and I crashed into the ditch, right? Ball up. I freaked out. I was freaking out, but I turned the lights off because I don't know how to drive at this point, you know? Still want my parents to see me coming down the road. I didn't even like move the seating, nothing. I was like, I ain't getting caught. Boom, right into the ditch, okay? So I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. So like, I don't have a phone or anything. I'll run home. I'm full of mud. And this is at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I call my boyfriend, and then his dad comes with his friends, and we're trying to get the truck out of the ditch. And yeah, that just didn't happen. So Mr. Day was like, you're just gonna have to tell your dad. You're just gonna have to tell him there's nothing we can do, you know. I know this sucks, I know this is unfortunate, but like, yeah. So yeah, needless to say, the cops got called. I tried to hide that I didn't do it, but I left my footprints behind, and they made me put my foot in the footprint, and yeah, it was me. And so I got in a bunch of trouble. I had to go to court. I had to do community service. I had to do all kind of stuff. And that's when I met my first son's dad. And I was 16, 17. I was 16. And he was older than me. I met him at a firecracker tent. I was selling fireworks, and he happened to be working there too. And one thing led to another, and we started liking each other. And he wasn't the best influence because he was a lot older than me, and I was a fresh baby. I didn't understand what was going on in the world. Well, so my parents emancipated me. So change your last name for what? For you to disown me again? So I always felt that way. I felt like they always would just disown me, right? They'd leave. So everybody would just leave. So yeah, that affected all my relationships, including my relationship with God. And then I was like totally against drugs. I was whatever. And then I tried drugs, and I was so mad at myself. And then I ended up drinking and doing other things, smoking weed, taking pills and stuff I wasn't supposed to. And just to be able to make it, just to keep up with the story I was telling myself in my head, you know, that they're not gonna like me if I'm just regular, you know, I'm ADHD, I'm spastic, I need my medicine, you know. So I just would always make sure I was like, I could never let my guard down, I could never be myself. And then I met my best friend, two of my best friends from working at Chili's, and I met a bunch of people there, and that was the first place I really felt like I belonged, even though I was sensitive, even though I had my issues, even though I didn't have a place to stay half the time, even though I got pregnant. Yeah, I did get pregnant. I remember I was in the midst of it. I didn't have a place to live. I think I might have been living out my car at the time, and the guy, my son's father, was just like in between jobs, also not doing what he was supposed to do. He's the one who really introduced me into drugs. and he drank a lot, and he smoked weed, whatever. Anyway, he did what he did, and I was so angry at him that he would do that to his body. And then I don't know why I thought that this would change anything. I was like, I'm gonna get back at him by doing it. Because, like, no, he's not about to do this. He's gonna stop. Yeah, I realized then, early on in life, you can't change people unless they want to change. And so that's how that began. And I remember not having a place to stay. My parents emancipated me. I was staying in an apartment before I was even 18 years old, because when you're emancipated legally, your parents gave up all rights of you, right? So I started just working a lot, and then I started missing school. And I remember one night I was just like, God, I just want someone. And I really, like, I would pray like the Our Father prayer, and I'd pray with my granny and my uncle and my aunt, but like I never really understood the power of prayers, the power of words, right? And it's all a learning journey, really. And I ended up praying to God one night for a baby. Why? Because I wanted someone to love. I wanted someone to love me. And I wanted to get out of the drugs. I wanted to go home, really. And I didn't know how to do that. So, you know when they say be careful what you ask for, right? I became pregnant. I wasn't 18 yet. I was still in high school. I was working. I was in band. I played the clarinet. A lot of people would say my life would have been over then, but I didn't believe that. I ended up having my son. I had just turned 18, and his birthday was a month after mine. So he was born a month after I turned 18, and I was freaking out that my body could even do any of this, right? And I was just like, I never want to have another baby again. Like I couldn't, like I just didn't really know what to do, how to be a mom. You know, I was just about to graduate high school. I just found a good job. Like, it was rough. And I just remember every day telling God, just push me through. That I know that I wasn't perfect. And I knew that I had a lot of work to do. But just to keep me safe and my baby safe, and to help me find a way to prove to myself that I was meant to succeed. And so would my child. So I left his dad when he was like almost a year old, because I didn't agree with a lot of the things he did. And then I got in another toxic relationship. Yeah. And didn't get out of that one for a while. And I'm not naming names. You know, the past is a past for a reason. And then I started sleeping around. I didn't know that at the time it was a sin. You know, like all kids, you know, not all kids, because some kids are, you know, even the ones that know do, like they do. It's just, we're flesh, right? Moving on. So I poured myself into my work. God just tremendously blessed me after I had my child. Like, I was always able to find a way out of no way. He helped me tremendously. I didn't have a place to stay. I had to move back to my parents. I didn't have a car. My mom had to drive me everywhere. I didn't know what I was gonna do. And so I got my first job, first big job at sorry, I got a message and I got sidetracked. I was angry for a long time because I didn't understand why my mom didn't love me like my siblings. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way with their parents, you know, but a lot of people don't understand that maybe their parents didn't give them that same love or that same affection, so they really couldn't do that with us. Well, I mean, when you're little, you don't understand any of that. You know, you're just like, my mom, they don't like me. I don't know what to do. And so I would just spend a lot of time with my grannies or my uncles because I felt more accepted there. I could be myself. I could do things. We'd always do stuff together as a family. I always admired the way they loved their kids. And I just wanted that for me so bad and for my sisters and brothers. Like, I had to grow up fast. I was the oldest, so I would take care of my siblings. And I had to leave so my mom and dad, or my biological dad, lost all rights. So that's when I stopped being able to see my little sisters and brother on that side. And I felt like I doomed them because I was the one keeping them safe. I was the one that I would catch whippings for them. I would stay up and change them so my stepmom wasn't so aggravated all the time or angry because she had so many kids. I remember I felt like my parents were just always like frustrated over money, and like them fighting for us in courts and stuff took a lot of that money. And so I always felt like again, like I was never accepted just for me being me. And I never thought about, oh, well, I mean, you know, it's not my fault I'm here. Or, I mean, she should have known before she opened her legs. Like, no, I never thought about any of that because I always tried to look, since I've been little, the best in people. I look for the best in every situation, even the darkest situation. And so anyway, I started working a lot and I took care of my son. God helped me find a way. I've been in and out of toxic relationships, in and out of addictions. My best friend that I made at Chili's hung herself, and before that I had lost my granny, and I was losing a lot of, like I said, a lot of loved ones really close to me, and it tore me up to the point to where I didn't know what to do, where to go, or anything anymore. So I found a church home, and I ended up getting saved back then, but I didn't really understand what all that meant. And that was in 2005, 2006. And I started making money, so I was able to give my mom and dad money when they needed, and I was able to help, and it made me feel good, it made me feel like I had a place, you know? And I just felt like it was never enough. Nothing that I would do was ever enough. But I promised myself that I'd be a good mom. That God chose me to be this child's mom. I'm gonna be a good mom. And I will not make my child feel the way I felt growing up. So, God, my oldest, has been through the ringer with me. I always took care of him. I always gave him what he wanted. I always worked 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. At 19, I was a finance manager at a finance company. Like, God was around me the entire time. And my son started getting older. I started moving up in my company that I was working at. I started making friends. I started going out in between jobs. Started going out after work. And that's when I started drinking a lot. And no one really knew until I couldn't function, you know. And I met a bunch of my friends there. Well, the few friends that I have, I met there. I started at Chili's in 2010. So my son was just born. And I just moved up. It took me a while, but I worked every single position in that place. I gave my soul to that place. And I always kept getting walkover or looked over, and it sucked. So I started feeling like they were using me, you know, and they were. And I remember just praying because, like, again, I never really knew about repetitive prayers and, like, really anything about the Bible because, I mean, I would see my granny praying the rosary, and I would see my parent and my uncles reading the Bible, but, like, I was like, that's a big book. Like, I can't sit there that long and read all that. It's gonna take me years, my whole life, you know, when you're that small, you think. And so anyway,
I have my son, move out, I find a place. I'm in and out of toxic relationships. I was mentally and physically abused. One of my relationships had me drug tested every day. And I wasn't even on drugs bad at that time. I think I might have just smoked here and there. I did also do meth. I'm not gonna name everything, but that one right there, that's a devil for sure. That just steals your joy, steals. And at first it don't seem like that. I was introduced to that through my real dad. He pretended it was cocaine, told me to go take a sniff. And when I sniffed it, I realized it wasn't cocaine, or it was something stronger than that, you know? And that's when I got addicted to it. And I was 23, 24, and no one knew. No one knew what I was doing. I've been without lights. I've been without a home. Had to walk to my jobs. I've had to like really crawl and scrape my way up, right? But I always knew God would keep me covered. I don't know how. I just know. I just knew. Like I said, I've seen things, I've heard things, I've witnessed things that only God could do. And I was never really religious. I'm still not. I have a relationship with God, and I had to go through like so many different Bibles before I found one. I didn't even know they had different types of Bibles. They have a student, they have like the children's Bible, and they have like New King James Version, the King James Version, you know, they have the Hebrews, they have the Greek. And when they said to study the Bible, I never really understood what they meant by studying the Bible. I always thought it was just, and then I'm on a tangent, but it's gonna all come back together. I just thought that the heeth, saith, theyeth, I didn't understand any of that. And I was not going to sit there and read something I didn't understand. So I just wouldn't. Well, when I got saved the first time, I got a Bible. My favorite verse in the Bible ever since I've been little is Psalm 119, 105. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light unto my path. I love it. I never knew why I loved it. But it's because God's words guide us and light up the path to where we need to go. So even though you feel like you're in darkness, you still lean on Him. He will get you out. He will. He will. I remember praying in the midst of my addiction. I would be like, God, just send me another baby so I have a reason to stop. I'm tired of waking up every day having to depend on something. Why am I so angry all the time? Why am I so sensitive? Why do I see and hear things that no one else does, or at least they wouldn't admit? And I went through all the party and whatever, you know, jumping in. I was like in 4 big relationships, and I just never really felt like loved. I felt like I was a roommate all the time, because I would people please and I would take on more responsibility than I was supposed to, and I didn't have anyone to really guide me or direct me. My parents would always get me out, but I got friends, and as I grew in the company, so did they. And Brandon and Chelsea and Catherine and a few others really helped me feel like I had a place there. Like they accepted me even though I was an emotional wreck, you know, because I didn't even know why I was so sensitive. And so, of course, that's where I want to spend all my time, even on my days off. And then I bring my kids there for dinner. It was amazing. Like, it was the best time. But it was also a hard time because I didn't get help other than his grandmother, you know, watching him while I was working. And, or if I had something to do, my mom would watch him. So, or if I had to work late, you know, she'd get him from daycare, so I'd not have to rush and make the money because she knew her son wasn't doing it. So she would do what she could to help me so I could do it. And so we did. And thank God for them and God for her. because thank God for my mom, because she let me go back in the house after, and Gavin grew there and had a solid foundation, and and through all this, Gavin was with me, and he never really saw the bad parts of it because I hid it. Like I said, no one knew I was on drugs. Like nobody. I just wanted to feel like I belonged, and I didn't. I was either paranoid or just going too fast. I couldn't concentrate, but I became a manager finally after years and years of pouring myself in this company. I became a manager, and that's when my life changed for the good. I couldn't just do anything anymore. I had to pour myself into something. I mean, before all that, I was still working in a finance company. I was managing boards, like I was doing it all, y'all. I don't even know how I did it. I just did it, and I know it was from God, because without God, I wouldn't have it. I got a vehicle finally under my name. I was working at a finance company, and my boss helped me get it. He saw how well I worked and how trustworthy I was, and I kind of failed him because I was working at a bar at night while I worked there during the day to make more money so we could have a place to stay. And I ended up going back to my old job managing a bar to help a family friend. And I even dated a girl for 3 years. And it was her sister. And I ain't gonna touch on that. All I'm gonna say is I poured myself out for that family, and they tore me apart to the point where they couldn't pay me anymore, and I lost my vehicle. And she told me that maybe that was God's way of telling me I couldn't afford a vehicle, but I had been paying the vehicle. So anyway, that's when I had to start walking everywhere and trying to find places to go, or that they would be able to bring me, to work or to school. I did graduate a year behind because not many people know that, because I had my son right when the LEAP test was going on, and I couldn't go into school to take the test. So I ended up having to repeat the year and only taking like 1 or 2 classes. And then I graduated high school in 2011 and with my sister. And we kind of went our separate ways after that, everybody. I was just angry at my parents because they emancipated me right after they made me get adopted. Not make me, but asked me. And I stayed angry for so long, to the point that when I got into the relationship I'm in now, it hindered it a lot. I could not trust him. I was looking, and my friends would just be like, Ashley, slow down. When we go out to drink, I don't want to have to babysit you. Like, this is not what this is, and I pour myself into my friends because like my family didn't accept me, but they didn't know that, And that's when I started losing like a lot of people close to me. I lost my granny that really stung. I couldn't get out of bed for a while. And then I started drinking to numb that pain. I mean, straight Crown. I was like 20, I don't know, in my 20s, 24 maybe. And I was angry at God because I didn't understand why he was taking away everybody I loved that kept me safe for so long. And now I understand. We all have our time here. We're all meant to share our story, to help other people get through the addiction, the unhealthy habits. And God doesn't want us to be perfect. I got held against my will. I remember getting shot at. I remember
just praying to God that I could find a place that would just be safe for me. And I met my spouse in 2018. I'm still with him. We're getting married in September, and we have 3 kids together. And he took Gavin in as his own, my oldest. So we have, and mind you, we're both working at Chili's. High energy job. Like, you gotta be in many different places at one time. You gotta oversee all these people, and like, you really have to be in sound judgment. And I remember like getting so upset at myself because I wouldn't get something on the first try, or like someone else's problem. I was always comparing, you know. And that's when I started going back to church and like really pouring myself into my job the right way, you know, stepping away from the drugs that I was doing because I didn't want my spouse to look at me any differently. And that's when I met him, and the very first time we had sex, I got pregnant. And that was 10. So my oldest and my second, or I'm gonna say they're 11 years apart. So yeah, it's like I had to mommy all over again, and I didn't know how. And it was so hard because I went from working all the time to staying home with a baby, never getting sleep, never tending to myself, not understanding. Like, I didn't even know how. I remember calling my mom and being like, dude, the baby won't stop crying. Like, I didn't get to take my bath tonight. Oh my God, like, freaking out, you know. And then I started smoking a lot of weed. It was prescribed to me, so I didn't see anything wrong with it. And it started consuming me, and I didn't realize how it consumed me in a bad way. Because, yeah, you can be prescribed something, but are you taking it as prescribed? Anyway, I stopped taking the Adderall that I had been on my entire life. And I had stopped doing meth. I had stopped, I just recently stopped taking the medicine, like a few months ago because of my blood pressure. Anyways, and I've been through therapists, and I've been through the ringer, I've been through counselors, pastors, everything, and I could never find a church where I really belonged. And I found one 3 years ago, and it's in Rain, Louisiana, the Sanctuary of Worship. My best friend is a pastor there, one of my best friends. I met him at the finance company, and God kept him in my life this entire time. And I never understood why. And I was mean to him and like really ugly to him at times because I was just hating myself. And I know that's a strong word, but I disliked myself a lot. And I was just like, why would someone want to rape a kid? Why would God let me go through all these things, you know? And then things started getting rocky between my parents, and they had a moment, and then I got pregnant again, back to back, 13 months apart. So I had Jacques, I have Gavin, he's 14, Jacques is 4 now, his sister is 3, okay? And they're 13 months apart. And I didn't even fully heal yet. So like that birthing experience is really wild for me because I had to have an emergency C-section, and I hadn't Gavin naturally. So I was like, oh my God, I'm having a cut across my stomach. It's like, that's when I started like losing my identity, because like I was growing up and becoming a mom, like to all these little kids that depended on me, and I didn't even know how to be me. So again, I'd mask myself into work, I'd mask myself into the weed, I would mask myself into something, and I'd pray. And then one day I just got tired of praying, and I was like, God, you don't hear me, you don't see me, but I know you're there. You've helped me through the unhelpable. You've sent me a kid every time I asked for your help. Those children were blessings to help me get out of the addictions that I was in, and I didn't know that at the time. And so I'm like wrestling with myself, you know. And then we thought, my daughter would be the last one. And negative. A year and a half later, things seem to be going good. I finally got my body back. I finally healed. I was a great job that I had left Chili's because of I worked in between having the kids. And then I left like 2 years ago now because of the way they treated me. I'd rather not talk about that right now. I just couldn't confide into these people for my entire teenage to adulthood life and poured my heart into a place that didn't do the same for me. And the end, it's about the money, not the people. And I don't want to be a part of that because wealth is not everything, but wisdom is. And being there for people and believing in people and helping them uplift. And I was so good with people. I was so good with training, and I didn't understand why they don't always want me to train, right? But it was because they knew that I wanted to do it the right way. I wanted to follow the rules and get these people where they needed to go. And I had gotten passed up on manager a few times, and it would burn me up, boy. I get so mad. I had quit Chili's 3 times, and I went back and I was gonna save my hometown, Chili's, and it just didn't happen that way. God closed that door for closure for a reason. My best friend left there. He's doing his own thing now because he saw like what they do to people. And so I always had like guy friends because girls, I don't know why. But I do have some girlfriends. I'm getting lost. So anyway, I just felt like a desperate need to change. My relationship was starting to get rocky. Him and I didn't really get to develop a foundation because like the first time we had sex, we had all these kids back to back to back. His mom and dad just tore me down, made me feel like my second son had a speech delay because I let him watch TV. They made me feel that he wasn't advanced because I wasn't sitting down playing with him at every given moment, but I was also working and coming home and taking care of the house and other kids and my other, like, giving everybody me. But I could never pour back into myself because I was always pouring back into other people. And after I had my daughter, my first daughter, I was in a dark place. My health was declining. I couldn't lose weight. I stayed swollen. My teeth were crumbling. It wasn't because of the meth. Let's just say it wasn't. I had beautiful teeth. It was just runs in our family. My mom had, my grandmother had it, well, anyway. So it's like my teeth started crumbling and I couldn't eat. And then I didn't want to smile. And I went like a year or so not smiling. Just had to deal with the pain because we didn't have the dental insurance to do it. And like I suffered through that. And then while you're pregnant, they can't work on your teeth. So finally, I started the process of fixing my teeth. And I remember writing it down. And I tried crystals, that ain't the way. I tried salt, that ain't the way. I tried rituals, that ain't the way. I tried therapists. I tried pastors. I tried being saved before I was ready and didn't understand what that meant. I tried everything that you could possibly think of that you could try. One time I thought I was a witch. And there's no... Anyway, we're not going to go on that one because then it'll be 2 hours long. My daughter's crying in the background, so I'm about to have to wrap this up. So it's like I clawed, and finally I just surrendered to God. And I was just like, I need to find a place to go. Like, I need some sort of foundation to work off of. Like, my relationship's going to crap. I'm about to lose a man that I love after all these years. He wasn't putting in like he was supposed to. We just weren't in a good place. And then I got pregnant again. In the midst of the chaos, in the midst of having to let go of a dream job that I thought was supposed to be like
my life, my career that I worked so hard on. So it's like I lost my identity with my job, myself. My parents moved across the world. I could never see them. My sister was going through some stuff. It's like I was getting attacked at every single angle. I was hearing stuff. People was touching me and nobody was there. Like, y'all, I was being attacked by the devil and I didn't know. All right, I thought I was going crazy. I needed to go to a mental hospital. I don't even know, right? Because these doctors make us think that these diagnoses make us who we are, and it doesn't. And so I started going back to church before I had my daughter. Actually, I was pregnant. But at first I started going because my best friend was the pastor, right? That was it. And I needed a home church. And then I started understanding more and more through the sermons and through his reading, and worship was just, I love worship. I worship like a child. I'll be running all over the church. I don't care, because of how much God's done for me in my life. He has really, like, I was torn apart into the ashes. I tried to kill myself twice. Overdose. And still he got me through it. And I had Juliet, which is my last child, and then I got fixed because, I felt like that was the right thing to do. Some people don't believe, whatever, but that's just me. And I was just like, I want to do this life right. We need to do better. We need to stop smoking, even if it's prescribed. Like, it's hindering our growth, our relationship. Anytime my spouse and I would try to talk, we were like at each other's throats. We could never get nothing in. It was always someone else's fault. It was always one person doing more than the other person. And then we just wouldn't be able to talk. And he'd always stay at his brother's, and I was home with the kids by myself, and I felt trapped, alone. Nobody understood. I was reaching out to my friends, and my friends were just like, you deserve better, blah, blah. And I never would go to God with that. And then one day in church, my pastor said, are you holding on to all these things? Are you holding on, please? Are you holding on to all these things? What are you holding on to all? Like, how did he say this? He's like, you're holding on to all those things that God's done washed away. Because every day is a new day, a new fresh start. To give your hands a surrender. And I'm not talking about halfway, one open, one closed. Like, I'm talking about surrendering your health, your finances, your relationship, your addictions. The darkest of the dark that you thought he didn't know, he knew. He knew you was gonna do it before you did it. And God started sending me people to help me understand. I started digging into the Bible. I started understanding the Bible. The Isaiah finally made sense. And I found a Bible that worked for me, and I started really, really, really trying to do better. And then I was in therapy. I actually fired my therapist, and I met an emotional support consultant. I'm actually mentoring with her right now to become the same thing. And that was a total game changer, because she believed in God. She let me talk. She was able to tell me what I needed to work on, hold me accountable, and make sure I did it. And it just changed my life. I went from being so angry and just, why I gotta have all these kids, why I can never go out, why I can never have friends, why I can never do all this, and this person could do this, because I was comparing and I wasn't looking at myself for who I was and what I was missing. I was just looking on the outside. So one day I just gave it all to God, and I was like, God, give it all to you, everything, every single thing. I give it to you. I don't want to live like this anymore. And I got saved again, randomly at a church in Baton Rouge. I felt called to go there. One of my old managers that I worked with had been asking if I wanted to go. So I was going through a lot of things, because I'd run to social media and blow up these big posts, because my fiance's mom wanted me to have abortions, and I didn't want to have abortions, and it would make me mad, and she always would tell me that I was doing something wrong.
but I never had no role model to model off of what a good mother was supposed to do. So I started pouring myself and investing and learning and applying, and by the grace of God, all those addictions slowly faded away, and all those attachments to those diagnoses is just that, an attachment. It's not who you are. That doesn't define where you can go, my love. It doesn't. Keep on looking up. Keep on going. When I thought I couldn't go anymore and I was giving up again, I put my hands up and I was like, God, I don't even really know how to pray. And everybody's telling me how to pray in all these different directions, and if you're a mess, you won't bless. And I just need you, God. And he heard my cry. And ever since then, every day, no matter how painful it is, I go to him and I'm like, God, forgive me for this. Because his grace and mercy is never ending. His love is unconditional. And he sent me my spouse to show me that, because no one in my entire life has loved me like my spouse has loved me. And I started working on myself and healing past trauma and forgiving people and forgiving myself, and only surrounding my atmosphere with people and things that uplift us. I threw out everything I could possibly think of that wasn't of God or that might have had an attachment to somebody else. And that lost little girl found her way and trusted God. And that in return made me heal my relationship with my entire family, and made me not so angry, heal my relationship with my spouse. He went from not wanting to get married in church, not believing in God, to now wanting to go to church. So I just want this to be uplifting. I want this to show you that there is a way. He is the way. He is the light, and he's so good. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Like and subscribe. Y'all have a good day.